Welcome everybody. Welcome to the new folks. Welcome back to everybody who's been involved so far. So,
What are we doing?
I thought we were having an episode.
Claims Corner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's what season is it?
It is season 4.
4.
Yeah.
And then this is episode number 5.
What's the what are we talking about today?
So actually today's actually a very interesting topic. Microphone's good over here? Okay. Yeah, today's actually a good topic. Normally when we do our claims corners, we bring in a guest speaker, somebody that is an expert in the industry, somebody that has the field knowledge or whatever that happens to be for that particular topic. And on this claims corner, we decided we're actually going to have 3 experts that are going to talk about a couple of different topics. Unfortunately, though, those 3 experts couldn't make it today. So today now we just have Murphy and David and myself that are actually going to sit here and talk about some topics. So, no, today we're actually talking about 2 different things when it comes to flooding and property claims. Kind of 2 different things that 2 different perils that since overlap each other. And one of them that we're going to talk about is actually flood versus sewer backup. And the other one we're going to talk about is actually flood versus wind, or wind surge, or wind versus water. There's a lot of people talk about that differently. But the first one we're actually going to jump on is this flood versus sewer backup.
What's the title? Have you said the title?
We really don't have a title. Yes, we do have a title.
I thought it was
Floated,
Flushed,
flushed,
blown away.
blown away.
Bloated. You forgot bloated.
That's only after dinner.
Oh, sorry.
So, but yeah, so we have this. So that's kind of our title, is this floated, bloated, floated. Now you have me saying it. Floated, flushed away, all the good stuff that relates to these two different perils that can overlap in coverage, and we have to know really how to handle, what to look for from both a flood side, from the flood adjuster, what they're supposed to do in their requirement, and then also from the property side. And so that's kind of why we brought this together, and set this up like this. So we flood and homeowners. And so the way we're going to get through this is we're actually going to arm wrestle to get through this. So
Yeah, I mean it's really no contest. I don't.
2 versus 1.
yeah. Well, I got Jeremiah back there, so he can jump in and help us like that. So, all right. So before we jump in and talk about these topics and kind of talk about some of the things that we're going through, do want to make a couple of quick announcements. One, we have part of Claims Corner and part of all our training that we do through CNC Pro. Anytime you log into CNC Pro, anytime you join a face-to-face training, a webinar, you come to these Claims Corners. You get these, when you register and you go through the whole process, you get CNC points.
What is that?
And CNC points, that's this thing we've been doing for a couple of years now. I think it is somewhere around there. But basically, the best way to think about CNC points, it's like you're getting CE credits for state, but you're actually getting these CNC points through CNC. The more points you get, the more opportunities you get. Proprietary, I don't think that's probably a terrible word to say, proprietary, but
I don't think you said it right. Is it pronounced like that?
maybe not.
It sounded like you said papaya.
Papaya?
Yeah.
Like
Just
the
leaving
fruit,
it that way.
like melon, papaya. So you get a fruit each
Right.
time you
It
get
is.
fruit. You get
Yeah.
So you get these CNC points that will go towards your deployments and things like that. So it kind of helps you get. Basically, the idea is we want our team of adjusters, our desk adjusters, our field adjusters, we want them in to gather as much training as possible. We're putting stuff in CNC Pro. We got these classes that we teach. We want you to come in. It doesn't matter what level you are. That's why the points are there. So if you're brand new to training, you're going to are brand new to claims, you're going to show up to training all the time. But for some of the seasoned folks that don't really show up all the time, they really should be, because the more information you can get, the better you become, the better of a professional adjuster you become, and it really, really, really benefits the policyholder, because you now have all the knowledge that you need Well, I shouldn't say all the knowledge needs to be, because that's what we're doing. We're developing more and more and more that you may go and learn 10% at a class, but that's just 10% more you learn this time than you did last. And each time, and I know you want to say something, David. You're getting excited over here.
Well, you keep cutting me
I
off.
know.
I keep trying to talk. It's like,
So I got on a roll here. Each time you come to these classes, you get these CNC points. And so it's very valuable for that. So, yes, David. Now you drink water. Murphy.
It makes you more deployable.
Makes you more deployable.
Yeah,
forgot
absolutely.
what I was going to say.
And not only makes you more deployable, it makes you to work claims faster.
Yes.
You understand the coverage. You understand how to interpret. You understand the customer service. You understand
Efficient.
the process, and more efficient to work claims faster.
Claims change every day. The process changes every day. The more knowledge you can gain, the more you stay up to date on that process, the better you can handle those claims. Absolutely.
Yeah. And ultimately, what happens when you do better at a claim?
You
make
get more.
money, and you get more. Yeah. But anyway, and that's not what we're here for. We're here to talk about our class. But real quick, NFIP recertification class is coming up May 4th, and that handsome devil right there, Mr. Craig Fowler, I will be teaching that class again.
Need to update that photo.
We do need to update that photo. So I've lost a couple pounds since then. So I'll be teaching that class. It'll be here in Mobile, Alabama, at our Katrina training room, May 4th, 8:30 to 3:30. If you haven't registered, make sure you call that number listed right there to register and come in for the class. There are some restrictions that you have to have, FCN numbers and other things like that in order to get in the class, but just definitely still call. Get in there, see if you can get in that class.
I had somebody reach out to me this morning about it, asking if we were doing it.
Okay.
So
Did you tell them, yeah? May 4th, 8:30 to 9, 8:30 to
They said
3:30?
no, I'll just find somewhere else to go.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
Don't miss out on that one. All right, so here's our topic: floated, flushed, blown away, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And when we get into this topic, we're going to talk about that. The way this topic came up is there's kind of two ways this came up. One is when I don't know if y'all have been paying attention to the news and everything and the weather particularly, but there has been massive amounts of snowfall that's been going on in California. It's just like, it's crazy the amount of snow that's been falling in California. You want to go to the next slide for me? And what you see here on this slide here is the picture to the left is in California. Snow, but those are actually people down there. I mean, and the height there just is
That's wild.
crazy how much snow is there. And then our very own Dr. Hal Needham, he actually went out with GeoTrek, and he was doing some, I'm not sure, doing some reporting and stuff with a GeoTrek, and this is one of the pictures he took. And I mean, that is a garage with snow on top of it. And I was doing, so once I started looking at this and realizing, all the snow, and you keep hearing it over and over and over again, I started doing a little more research on this. And I was like, all right, I need to figure out what's going on here. There's been 677 inches of snow, and that was a couple weeks ago. It could have snowed since then, but at that point, it broke a 40-year-old record, which is kind of like 40. I mean, I'm 52, so that's not too old. I mean, but for snow, yeah. Broke a 40-year-old record. And so I was like, okay, what happened 40 years ago? So I did a little more research, and in 1983, the Yolo County area had massive flooding from snowmelt.
YOLO.
Okay.
Where's YOLO at?
And it's in California.
Okay.
Yeah. You only live once.
That's what I was thinking about when I saw that. Yeah.
So the had this massive amounts of flooding. So what's been happening, if you haven't been paying attention to the news, is there's been these atmospheric rivers. And I'm sure there's probably been more than 17 since then, but just constant. I mean, if you don't know what atmospheric river is, it's a constant flow of moisture in the atmosphere that's just basically trailing over the same area over and over again, just dumping snow, dumping rain, dumping that. Well, these atmospheric rivers are still occurring, still going on, not as often, but they're still happening. And what's happening now is the temperatures are warmer, so now we have rain that's falling on top of just feet of snow. Well, what's not being noticed is a lot of people don't understand, okay, the rain falls on top of the snow. Where is that going? Well, what's happening is it's going through the snow into the soil below, saturating the soil, kind of going down. It's basically just the snowpack is happening. So that's the airspace in between it. And if you can go to the next slide. So we have this happening, and there's a better example. This is I found some information online, and there's the web page that found it in the quotes, and credit this information from these sources here. But the one on the left is, I think that's my left. Is that my left?
That's your left. That's my right.
Yeah, that's my left. But the one on the left there is what they did is they're showing samples of coffee. They poured coffee on the snow because it gets the dark color, and you can see how the coffee, like rain, has seeped down through the snow. And then the one on the right is showing where all the snow, there's just rain. There's just water underneath the snow. Okay, so what we have here in this situation is all this snow is here, all this rain is under here. You're not paying attention to that. What it's doing is it's saturating the soils. It's getting into the rivers. It's getting into the creeks. It's basically getting to a point where with so much snow and so much rain they had, there's the potential for flooding in California is imminent. It is really high. And if you look back at where 40 years ago there was flooding, okay, so now we see this. Okay, we have a situation, and California's recognizing this. The government's recognizing this. Everybody else is starting to recognize this. We have a situation now where there's a very, very good chance of flooding to occur in California. Record amounts of flooding, which leads to our first.
I would think so with all that snow, the amount of snow that's going on. It's not going to stay frozen forever, right? We must have a atmospheric.
And that's just going to add to that water.
Exactly.
I think we got an atmospheric river over Mobile constantly.
We do.
It just dumps rain all the time.
Yeah,
it
Mobile.
rained today.
I think Mobile is the rainiest city in America.
Yeah. Most people think it's Seattle.
Second behind. Yeah, you're right.
Seattle's up there.
Seattle's up there, and there's a place in Hawaii that gets the most rainfall. We're number 2 behind that place. That's crazy.
I believe
crazy. Mobile's always sad. They're always crying, just tears. So we had this situation where we can potentially. I mean, this is a photograph from 1997 when we had this rain on snow event, and like Murphy, you pointed out, which is a great observation, is you have all this water down here, you have all the snow melt up here, and it keeps raining and it keeps accumulating under here, and nobody's seen the snow melt yet. Well, that snow's got to melt.
Right.
That snow is going to melt.
And that water level's just going to rise.
Oh, it's going to continue to rise. Now, it'd be really smart if somebody would say, hey, let's figure out a way to actually collect all this and save it for the West. I mean, West Coast. Yeah, recycle. Yeah. But anyway, we're beyond that because it's actually going to get in the rivers and we have this dry soil out there now that's probably saturated by now. I mean, I don't know the full details. I'm sure it's extremely saturated. Well, when all that melts, it's got to go somewhere, and it's probably going to go into the rivers and the streams, which is going to back up in the creeks, which is going to back up the drainage, which is going to back up the plumbing, which is going to get into the properties, and which then we're going to have what we're going to talk about next is actually our sewer backup versus flooding. So here's some nice pictures that we found, and what we're looking at here is basically your sewer backup versus flooding, and there's a difference in sewer backup that's caused by little Johnny. Little Johnny throws his toys in there, flushes it, comes back up. That's that's something that we're not dealing with. But this is what we're talking about here is when we get this sewer backup or flooding that has occurred because the overflow or the overwhelming creeks have now backed up the city drainage, and now it's actually backing up into your houses. And especially when you're down in basements and places like that, you'll see this more often.
Yep.
So that leads us to the next section here. Okay? What is it? We have this situation right here. Is it sewer backup? Is there a flood? What has caused this? Is this a flood issue? Where, this flood issue, flood should take this over and run with it? or is this a homeowner's issue?
Well,
Or homeowners take it over?
one thing I want to mention and point out, and Murphy had said something to the effect earlier, is from a homeowner's perspective, when they have a loss, you know, whether it's a pipe burst or whether it's a backup or whatever, they file a claim and, you know, say, my home's flooded. But it may not be flood, right? I mean, it may be from the overflow.
Correct.
That's just a buzzword.
It's a buzzword, yeah.
Yeah, people say my house flooded.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You get a little rain in there, my house flooded.
right.
Because technically it did, but not as the definition states.
Right. And
Not the definition we use.
I want to define backup real quick. So, you know, we mentioned this. Backup it's wherever that water or wherever it originates from, it goes in the opposite direction, like you talked about. You know, there's a micro machine stuck in the plumbing, or Iron Man is.
You have kids.
Yeah. 5-year-old. Iron Man's hiding in the toilet because he don't want to go into his toy box, you know, kind of thing. So you flushing and it can't go down, so it's got to go. It's going to go back to where it originated from.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of defining that. We all know that the sewer, the drain, you know, they have lines that it's designed to take everything away from the house, right?
Should.
So yes, it should. Sometimes it
But
doesn't.
if there's something preventing it from going down,
That's when you get that reversal.
then it's.
It's going to go right back.
And,
where it
and
came
I only
from.
mean like the Iron Man. I'm thinking it more in lines of like we may experience out there now is all these streams and lakes are above where the drainage normally occurs, and now they are backed up. And then little Johnny throws something in there, or your son throws Iron Man in there and flush, and that has nowhere to go.
Yep.
Even if it doesn't have even if he doesn't throw it in there, we are still dealing with a situation where it has nowhere to go. And as the waters continuously rise and rise and rise, they're eventually going to find the lowest point, access point, and they're going to start making their way out of there.
Right.
So that's what we experience.
It's going to find the path of least resistance.
Yep.
So for the flood side of things now, when we talk about this, I don't call it flood yet. We talk about this water backup. We talk about this issue that we're seeing. We go into this house and you see mud and whatever else that is on the floor in there, and you have a couple inches of water in there, and it's actually come back from the toilets, or it's come through the sinks, or even the showers.
Yep.
Comes the drains of that. You know, as adjusters, we go out there and we have to start kind of doing our assessment, doing our look. As a flood adjuster, you know, speaking from the flood adjuster side, we have to start looking at these things. But under the NFIP, Standard Flood Insurance Policy, we actually have restrictions that we have to follow first. And one of them, as we listed up here, as we talk about this in exclusion, when we talk about the waterborne material that backs up through a drain or sewer, that's excluded. Okay? When you look at the exclusions, you're going, okay, this excluded. So immediately I'm going to say, oh, that's your responsibility. Okay? But what we're really referring to here as it backs up through sewers or drains is that Iron Man. We don't cover Iron Man. Okay? That's what this is referring to there. But if we have this massive amounts of snow melt and the creeks are overflowing and it's backing up, well, is that a situation where it's a proximate area? Is that the proximate cause? Is the backup from a general and temporary condition of flooding? Because we have water that's overflowing its banks, and we have 2 or more properties in its general and temporary condition, and in that situation, we have a condition of flooding. Okay. Now, as an adjuster, I have to go out as a flood adjuster and look at that and say, okay, where did this originate from to cause this backup into my property and cause this flooding? So we see exclusions, but then we go, wait a minute, there's more that we need to investigate. Okay, and that's on the flood side of things, how we look at coverages. Okay, we have to go out there and document that. Now you're going to go out, y'all are going to get a claim. So what's normally going to happen? A policyholder is going to call. They're going to call their agent and they say, "My house flooded, sewer backed up, need to file a claim." The agent may or may not file two claims. One on the flood side if they have flood coverage, one on the property side if they have property coverage. And it's more of, okay, who is going to pay for what?
Right.
So then what happens is flood adjuster gets the claim. You get the claim as the property adjuster. Yeah, we're sitting in here 4 feet apart talking to each other. But when we're adjusters, would probably have no idea you had the claim.
Yeah,
You would
rarely
have
these
no idea I
conversations
had it.
happen. Yeah.
Zero. So now you're going to get the property claim. What do?
I'm going to see if they have coverage first, because the water backup, sewer backup is an exclusion, right? It's generally not covered under a homeowner's.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Right.
you can get an endorsement, though. You
Right.
can get sewer backup coverage.
Yeah.
Right. If there is, you want to look for coverage. We always want to look for coverage. So the first thing is we want to see what the policy says. And we've got the exclusion. We just don't want to default to the denial. So if they have an endorsement, if it is coverage, there's usually an endorsement that gives them. And on the homeowner side of it, there's usually a limitation as far as the dollar amount of what
Yes,
their coverage
usually
is going to
there
be.
is.
So, I mean, we're going to go out and investigate, and we're going to try to find coverage for that. But, I mean, from the homeowner standpoint, we want to ask those questions. We want to investigate and say, what happened? Where did it come from?
So on the
Right.
homeowner's side, there's exclusion, and then there's an endorsement. Is there any restrictions to that endorsement? Does it have to meet some certain, like on the flood side, there has to be a GCF for it to actually be
Right.
looked at. Is there anything like that on the homeowner side? Is it just sewer backup covered, but you have to have that endorsement for it to be covered?
Yeah, I would say 9 times out of 10, it's going to be excluded. Well, even 10 times out of 10, it will be excluded right off the bat, unless they have bought that additional endorsement that allows them coverage. And like to David's point, it's going to be a certain dollar amount, whether it's 10K, 5K, something like that. But as far as the exclusions almost per se inside the endorsement, that can differ per carrier. And we've seen that on our side many times. So
Yeah,
You're going to there's exceptions to that. Like, it's going to be excluded, but it's up to the homeowner and the agent to educate the homeowner if they qualify. Now, let me say this, not everybody qualifies for water backup or sewer backup. There's lots of factors that go into that. It may not be available for them to get. If it is, of course.
to get that endorsement?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
a lot of times it matters, too, if it's public or private. If that's the source of the water. If it's public, sometimes it's not. If it's private, sometimes it is. So there's a second word to that I just don't want to say, but it's public or private. So.
Yeah. I know where you're going with that. It threw me off for a second. Yeah. So, but in some states, there is no limit. Some states, there are no limits, I guess I should say. But it really depends on what they qualify. If they qualify, they're going to have that endorsement. But you want to, be able to identify the source of the problem. Some folks call out plumbers. They call out mitigators, and they'll help figure out the problem.
So,
what happened.
So you're out there, homeowner adjuster, doing your job. I'm out there, flood adjuster, doing my job. I seriously doubt, we're out there doing the same investigation. Most likely that policyholder has not informed me that they filed a property claim.
Right.
And I doubt the homeowners informed you that they filed a flood claim. And so we may be out there at different times looking at different situations. And here's where, as an adjuster, you go out into a situation where we have potential sewer backup or potential GCF that has resulted in the sewer backup, this discharge, the plumbing. We need to have that conversation with the policyholder. Say, okay, I'm out here looking at this. I see that as a flood adjuster. Is there a property claim that you filed on here? Have you filed a property claim?
They may not know to file a flood claim or a property
They
claim.
may not.
Yeah.
But the agent may have filed that, and so that's where we have to have that conversation. We did basically, as an adjuster, you got to ask the question.
Right.
You got to have that conversation when you see that we potentially have a peril that could be covered under your homeowner's policy. That question needs to come up.
I think it's a common misconception, too. The insured may think the flood adjuster doesn't need to talk to the property adjuster because if they're not going to cover it, well, they'll tell the other one not to cover it. When in all reality, you may not, but we may, or we may
Correct.
not, and you may.
Correct.
But I think some policyholders think, well, if they talk to them and they're not going to cover it, well, they're going to convince the other party not to cover it either, and then I'm just out. So I think that's
Yeah, and to your point, it's always about educating the policyholder on what they qualify or what they have coverage for.
And both y'all's points are valid because their policyholder doesn't want to get left out of some type of coverage, but also at the same time, as an adjusters, I got to pay for what I owe, and you got to pay for what you owe. We can't have this overlapping coverage.
Right.
We can't overlapping payment. I mean, that's just not there. You can't have it. You're not supposed to have it.
Yep.
But it happens too often that does happen, where a flood adjuster go out and they'll write their estimate, they'll do something, and then they'll realize later on down the road that, we had a homeowner's claim. Well, if that process happened where it was a communication between the parties, we would identify that right away, and we'd avoided this potential overpayment. Because once we get down into the payment process, if y'all have a claim and we have a claim, then under the National Flood Insurance Program, the Standard Flood Insurance Policy, we actually have to look at it as a proportional loss distribution. We have to look at how much coverage y'all have, what's the deductible, what percentage of the damages are going to be paid under there, and then we have to deduct that out of our estimate and do a proportional loss so that there is no overlap in payment. And unless we have this conversation, we would never know that to be an issue.
So what's stopping the conversation from happening?
I think it's a matter of the adjuster not identifying or not speaking to the policyholder about, okay, I understand this coverage here. This is a result of potential sewer backup. Bing, little bell goes on, say, okay, sewer backup can be an endorsement on your homeowner's policy. Do you have a homeowner's coverage? And then follow through that with there.
Right.
Unless they have that conversation, and of course the policyholder may not actually give them the full information. We don't know. But if they don't have that conversation, they will never know.
That's right.
You'll never have that.
very true.
And so like I said, when we get down the estimate, okay, we're getting down and writing an estimate, we possibly have that proportional loss distribution that we have to look at and make sure we're not paying anything. But also a lot of times we see the sewer backup stuff happen in basements. And under the National Flood Insurance Program, under the Standard Flood Insurance Policy, there are limited coverages in a basement. Okay, let's just say this room right here was a basement. We have this paneling here, this soundproof, and we have carpet and everything else. We have no coverage for this. Okay, we could pay for that as a unfinished drywall, but you can't pay for it as this type of material. The carpet's not covered, the trim's not covered, the light fixture's not covered, the ceiling's not covered. There's a lot of stuff that the material's not covered. So when we have a situation where we have this claim that's in a basement possibly, and let's just say we're looking at that bathroom, we have the tile and the vanity and stuff, we can't make a recommendation for that. Those are non-covered, non-insurable items under the Standard Flood Insurance Policy. Okay? So I'm going to write an estimate for like flood loss cleanup and some drying and possibly for some unfinished drywall and some non-flammable insulation, things like that. You're going to write an estimate probably without us communicating for the same items.
Right.
So now what we have just done is penalize that policyholder because one of us can't pay for it, when the reality of it is we should have said, hey, here's what I'm going to make my recommendation for. Everything else that is a non-insurable item in the National Flood Insurance Program, I will recommend you make that recommendation for.
Right.
Yeah, because I mean, with exception to some circumstances, I don't know that the stuff that you just named is. I mean, I've always paid for that under sewer water backup, as far as the carpet, the baseboard, the paint, the drywall,
light fixtures,
which is correct under the policy, under the homeowner side. That stuff isn't, but it's but again, like you point out, you're still subject to that limit. There's probably a $5,000 or $10,000 limit you're subject to. But those are the items that a property adjuster should be looking at paying for, because those are not covered under the NFIP side. Which we would never know that if we weren't talking.
And you're in the middle of the storm, or you're running your claims, doing your claims, and you've got 50 or 60 claims, and you're trying to close them out as fast as you can, and getting asked where they're at. The policyholder's calling you. Well, I mean, I get all that, but you still, if you don't do all this up front or at least try to make the effort, it's still going to delay in the long run because you're going to have to go back and correct it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're either going to have an overpayment, you're going to have an underpayment, you're going to have some issues that, you still have to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, at some time, you're going to deal with it. Deal with it up front, because the longer you wait to deal with something like that, is the more complex it gets and the more complaints you're going to get by not just addressing
And
it.
the more damage that can occur.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But, that brings up a great point. You're talking about claims and rushing and all this other stuff, and, that's going to kind of lead us into our second segment here, our second topic,
Yeah.
which is, we get in now, we talk about wind versus flooding. And, for those who are not in the know, hurricane season starts June 1st. It's right around the corner. Okay? And
April.
if you're in Mobile, like you talked about today, this rain event that we had last night, if you look at it on a radar, it looks like it's trying to spin.
It does.
I think that was a low pressure. I think we're
Something's
already into
going
something
on, 'cause, there was a lot of wind.
Very windy this morning.
Yeah, I think we're into maybe a hurricane season already. So, but I
Felt
really
like
think
it.
hurricane season kind of gets more and more active earlier each time. But then there's that lull that happens because the Sahara dust and all that stuff, and then all of a sudden, October and whatever the months after that just kind of picks back up again.
Right.
But so here we have another situation. Okay, everybody's familiar with Hurricane Ian, just happened. But we also dealt with this kind of same situation when we talk about the wind versus flooding was Hurricane Michael. But you look at the stats on Ian, and Cat 5 when it made landfall, Cat 4, 115, 130 mile per hour wind, somewhere around there, which is that's pretty strong, and then a 10 to 15 foot surge. You immediately, as an adjuster, should go, okay, 115, 130, wind damage. 10 to 15 foot surge, flood damage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now we have two perils that had just happened. Where do we go with these?
Mm-hmm.
Where do we go with this? But this has been a issue, especially on the flood side, when we do this thing called the RCQC, Random Claims Quality Check. Well, we don't do it. The program does it, and then they go back to the adjusters and the adjusting firms and the WOs and the insurers and say, "Hey, here's where we saw a lapse of scope, or there was something missed here." And there's these. They come out with some kind of trends. Well, one of the trends was that came down to was basically about water and flood versus wind versus flood, whatever you want to call it. And that the adjusters were missing identifying, is this wind or is this flood? And they brought up a good example. Adjuster went in the house, there's a couple of feet of water in there, and the roof had some damages, and the ceiling had water damage to it, and the kitchen cabinets had water damage to them. Okay? Couple of feet of water, upper cabinets were up here. Well, the adjuster paid for the upper cabinets on the flood claim. When logic, common sense says, wait a minute, we have a ceiling opened up here and the rain is coming in, which is probably where this actually damage occurred, but the adjuster wrote these under the flood.
Why do you think that?
I can't say on camera.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
We'll mute that one. No.
Wow.
You know what? I would probably say the reason that was paid like that, lack of knowledge of the program and what is allowed under the National Flood Insurance Program, what is considered direct physical loss by or from flood, and what is the definition of a flood. That's probably where that came from. Just lack of training. I'm a plug. Lack of coming to training classes over and over and over again. Like riding a bike, you can't just get on and start riding it. You gotta learn. And I think it's a lack of not coming to classes and training, and spending the time during the kind of the off season. We always have those off seasons that we're dealing with now, and taking advantage of every training opportunity given to you. And I think that's where some of that came from.
Right, but and going to that is you want to stay calibrated. You can get all the training you can 10 years ago, but things change. The industry changes. The manual may change. The policy may change.
Changes daily.
So you just don't know it all at one time and just you have to stay involved in it.
Changes daily.
And pay for
So-
the cabinets up from flood.
Yeah. So, and that's the other thing, I think lack of understanding the policy or understanding the claims manual. And in the claims manual, there's a section in there on wind investigation tips. I mean, wind and water investigation tips. And so when you go out to a property and you see, okay, we potentially have this house that has both wind and flood damage, then I need to do my investigation tips. I need to make the determination what is from what is from flood, what is from wind, and go through there. And so you got this tips where you're supposed to record the what are we supposed to record here? The barometric pressure, the wind speed, the amount of rain, the tidal heights, the surge, the distance from the body of water, the amount of storm debris, okay, and also record your wind damage and your flood damage. And as an experienced adjuster, or that you've gone through a lot of training, you will be able to identify, because you think about, where does wind occur? Where does wind damage normally occur? High up.
Yeah.
Where does flood damage normally occur?
The upper
So-
cabinets in the kitchen.
So I learned this a long time ago from going to these NFIP recertification classes, and the trainer was Donald Waters, and he was with FEMA, and he would go out and do these classes. And I remember this is probably the thing that just stuck with me forever, because when we were talking about damages, and the way he was very dynamic on speaking and how to present the stuff, and you know, if you weren't paying attention, he'd be like, "Wait a minute, you're not paying attention. Pay attention." And he'd kind of call you out.
already.
But it wasn't just, let's go through the slide, let's talk about all this. I mean, he really engaged everybody. And I remember this very well. When we're talking about damages, which flood damage, he said, "I want to make sure you drink that, because if I say this, you're going to probably spit the water out." Okay. So he toe up from the flow up. Because that's what it is. I mean, that's where you're dealing with flood. You know, like you said, wind is high, and you're gonna the higher you go up in the storm, the stronger the winds actually are.
Oh boy!
And I mean,
Made
the
my
hurricane
eyes
hunters
water.
are recording these winds, but they're pretty 1,500.
Yeah, there's
2,000
no
feet.
resistance up there.
Yeah, and then you get down here and toe up from the flow up, and that's where water, because water comes in and then it comes up.
Right.
And so you're looking, as a flood adjuster, you look down.
Oh boy!
So you have to, as a flood adjuster, I have to document these things, but at the same time, I got to go, what's up here that's damaged that I need to make report of? Okay, and I'm not going to, as a flood adjuster, going to say this is from wind. All I'm going to make a note of is this is damages from another peril. I don't specifically know what caused this, but I know there's damage up there, and I'm going to take a picture of it. And that's what I should be doing as a flood adjuster out there when I go around. So we're supposed to do that. And then this leads us again to this issue that we have, like Ian and Michael. You go out to this property, you see this wind damage, you see this flood damage. What are we supposed to do?
Got to ask the questions.
Just move on to the next one. You investigate.
Yeah.
You
I will say
investigate.
this.
You educate the
You
policy.
need more training.
Call your manager.
You need to get your CMC points up, young man. But what was the second part?
Investigate. Ask the questions.
And that's the policy. We're asking the policy
Ask
questions.
What?
And again, unless I go, hey, Mr. Policyholder, Miss Policyholder, do you have a wind adjuster involved? Have you filed a homeowner's claim? I'm not going to recognize that. But we're supposed to have that conversation. According to the manual, according to everything we're supposed to be doing, I'm supposed to have that conversation with the policyholder. I need to actually talk to your wind adjuster. I need to look at their estimate.
Why?
I need to make
Why do you
sure
need to do that,
that
Mr. Adjuster?
why do I need to do that? To make sure I'm not paying for something you're paying for.
Wouldn't hurt to inspect it at the same time.
If
It
you can-
rarely
if you can-
happens.
if you can schedule that.
Yeah, but it wouldn't hurt.
And that's kind of what David was pointing at as well is, you know, you're in a hurricane, you're rushing. So do you really want to spend a lot of time picking up the phone and trying to call David, who has his schedule, and he's running his claims, and try to coordinate those two with each other? That's a challenge. But you still have to have that communication and say, do you have a homeowner's claim? I need to get with your homeowner's adjuster. I need to get their estimate before I can work on my estimate, because we got to see where we're going to split this baby.
Yeah, where that line is. Yeah.
Where's that line? And in this particular example, the cabinet guy example, he should have had that conversation. Say, I cannot make a recommendation for those cabinets because they're damaged by wind. That's going to be paid for under your wind claim, hopefully. Mm-hmm. I'm here only as the NFIP flood adjuster. I'm looking at your flood claim, and this is what I'm going to make a recommendation for.
Right. It goes back to this is what is covered under your policy. this is what's not covered under your policy. Do not be afraid to talk to the policyholder and tell them that. They will appreciate that more than just you saying, just pay for this. What about this? I don't know.
May try to get a little pressure too by saying, hey, are you not going to put my upper cabinets in your estimate? And at that time, that's when you got to have that conversation and say, hey, look, I can't, but if you got a homeowner's claim, odds are, he can be able to at least address it. So,
and I mean, even so, the claims manual for the National Flood Insurance Program, Standard Flood Insurance Policy, claims manual that has out there even states that, okay, we cannot pay for what you're paying for.
Say that again.
So the Standard Flood Insurance Policy, so that the adjuster's claims manual for flood, it states we cannot make a recommendation for what the wind adjuster should be make a recommendation for. We can't overlap coverages.
It says it in the policy.
It says it in the claims manual.
In the
itself.
manual, yeah.
It says this information.
Which is the manual what do you use the manual for?
I would call it your flood adjuster Bible.
Yeah, so you should know it. Okay.
You should know it. Yeah. You should know it. You know what? And it's crazy. Here's the guy that probably paid for the upper cabinets. So, there's a manual that's been out for a couple of years, and I shouldn't say probably even longer than that, but they're updating. It's basically a live document. Every time there's a change, they announce the change. I think there's a change coming up pretty soon where they announce these changes, and then you're supposed to go in there and look at it. I've had adjusters say, I did not know, and people with FCN cards who've been in this business for a long time, I did not know there was a claims manual. Oh, I didn't know it changes. And you're like, that is basically your guide to adjusting a claim. Yeah. But that goes back to training.
Wow.
And
exactly is what I was going to say.
So, I'll point this out. So, you can ask for this. We should be asking the policyholder for this from the flood side. Anything that is a wind item and we want to just trigger it into our estimate, you can put it in there. I can put the cabinets in there, but then I'm going to zero that out.
Right.
Because that is not an item that I should be making a recommendation for as a flood adjuster.
Yeah.
And so we need to do those things. And
oh boy, what happened there?
So what happened here? This actually was a result of a hailstorm. Okay. I was trying to think of something crazy, but yeah.
That's a hell of a hailstorm.
So what happened here? This is actually the same house. This is the front side. It's, the picture's kind of close up. This front side, which you see the siding on there, and then we have the water side, which is basically completely bare. Okay. Here's a situation. We have a flood claim. We have a wind claim. Could you tell me as a adjuster what you should be paying for the wind side?
All of it. Total loss.
That's a typical answer in a flood as a property adjuster would say. Total loss. You look at that and go, total loss. And then I'm going to come out there as a flood adjuster, and depending on what's in that first floor, if there's signs of water in there, I'm going to try to make a recommendation for everything inside that first floor. And everything underneath there that was covered under the National Flood, under the, let's just say this is a dwelling form, under the dwelling form here. Okay? We just overpaid that claim. Because you paid a total loss, which your policy, how much do you think the value of that home is?
It's on the beach.
Let's don't count the land.
Okay.
Just the structure.
We're looking at probably $350, $450.
Okay.
Maybe.
Let's say $450. Okay. You just paid $450 on this.
I'm getting a
my
nice
policy.
paycheck.
My policy most likely was probably maximum coverage, which was $250. And I'm gonna go out there, and depending on how much damage is inside, I could possibly pay $150, $175, $250 inside. That house, how much was that house worth again? $450.
$450.
$450.
Okay. That claim just got overpaid by $200 plus. Should never have gotten there because we didn't have this conversation. And the program even says you cannot do that. You cannot overpay the value of the home. Right. And until we talk, we just overpay the value of this home, which is, it's wrong. Okay? But as a property adjuster, you're rushing, you're trying to get out there, you're trying to run these claims, and you're just you don't have time for that conversation. Here's a situation, though, where an engineer most likely should have been brought in. Somebody looked at this and say, what is our flood? What is from wind? What percentages here and there? And then made that determination from there. And that was probably the best solution to this right there. And as we did with the sewer backup and the and on this section here, we have to have that conversation. What are you going to pay for? Because I'm not going to pay what you're paying in this, where we should have said, we're paying this and you're paying that, and moved on.
That one is toe up from the flow up.
Absolutely.
You start down here, I'll start up here. We'll meet in the middle.
That's exactly what should be. That's exactly what happened. And then we have all this down here. That's a lot of non-covered items down here. But we can move on from that one. But that's part of that other house that we just saw. And here's another good example.
What?
I'm going to be honest. A wind adjuster is going to try to pay all this.
Of course.
A flood adjuster is going to try to pay all this. They're both wrong.
Where's my engineer at?
Exactly. The other one, there's probably a good chance we could have come to an agreement somewhere where we're going to pay by looking at the damages, looking inside. Here, I don't even know if that's from flood or wind or tornado or.
That's a Patriot missile.
Patriot missile, yeah. That's better.
That took care of it.
Yeah, you got to figure out how close to the water that is, how high was the surge.
What in the world are we looking
now,
at here?
we're looking at a concrete slab.
Oh, yeah.
What happened here?
They just hadn't built it yet. It's all that's there.
All this debris back
It's
here.
as far as they got.
You know what? You actually make a good point. How do we know this house was ever even finished? How do we
Surely
know
they've got
what's-
a picture.
I would
true.
hope so.
Not true.
No, I mean from before. Hey, this was our beach house.
And don't call me Shirley.
We're staying. Airplane.
They were taking a picture as they were floating away.
As the insured was floating away, or the house?
In their
But
kayak.
this is a great example. Again, we have a total loss. We don't know what was from flood and from wind. We have to have that conversation. And in fact, I think the actual coverage of this was a result of sewer backup.
Oh, they only getting $5,000.
Yeah.
10 if you have an endorsement. 10 if you have an endorsement.
Be nice.
But again, that is a situation where what do we have to do?
Well, I mean,
We gotta
We
talk.
run to that. You run to that. I run to that. What are we doing?
Yeah.
You got to have that, and you got to have that talk. You have to have that conversation, and you have to have it immediately.
Yep.
I have seen clients after Michael where the adjusters did not have that conversation, and then the adjuster goes in and he's starting to write this estimate for, a week or two later, writing this estimate for a slab that's completely gone and total loss in the flood, and it's me like, wait a minute, have you talked to the wind adjuster? What do they pay for? Oh, let me go talk to the wind adjuster. Okay, you didn't do your investigation tips. You didn't follow through on that. You didn't have that communication with the policyholder and their adjuster. And the result was every one of these, this guy had 3 or 4 of them like this. Every one, the wind adjuster had already paid total loss on.
Time is money. Use it up front.
And it's like, you can't do anything. You're not supposed to do anything now because they've already paid everything that was owed.
toe up from the flow up.
So from the flow up. So we have
We got the video?
we got one video here we're going to show real quick before we call it a day here.
Okay.
I got to see this.
So here is Max Olson storm chasing. This is on YouTube, and we'll give credit there. But this is a video that's been I've seen this several times at conferences already, and I saw this when it first came out. Whew. So what do you see here on this pink house? You see wind or you see flood?
Both.
Okay. How much wind damage do we have right now, though?
Not from
bit.
what I can see, not much.
Well, I mean, look at the windows. So the windows must have blown in because
Yeah.
the curtains are flooding. Okay. Now look what happened
boy,
here.
look
Look at the roof. Okay,
yeah.
where's this house going?
Down the street.
Down the street.
They're moving.
So basically, the water, the buoyancy of this house lifted this house off its foundation, and the structure off its foundation, and now it's being pushed down the street and probably into a heaping pile, and just total devastation. Okay, so you're going to go out there as the wind adjuster, and what are you going to pay for?
That's a good question.
Where's the
house?
It's down the street now, but
Yeah.
it's gone. It's
So
it's
let me-
just a pile of debris.
Point out something here, though. I mean, how do you know unless you have this video? But I mean, I don't see anything on the house going down the street. As it's going down, the palm trees are still standing up.
Right. Yeah.
The power pole's still standing
You
up.
can see a little bit of roof damage,
mean,
but
Yeah, on the ridges or the hill.
So
I mean, you think about what made it go down the
You
street.
made one of the investigation tips. You're looking for the debris.
What's your collateral?
You're looking around there.
Yeah.
You're looking at the
Support it.
structures around there and in the landscape around there to say, like you point out, we got this pile of debris over here. but we have all these palm trees still kind of standing. We have the telephone poles. We had a couple 100-mile-an-hour winds. That's 200. That's a lot. We had winds that are less 135. You're probably going to have some palm trees and some other debris that has fallen. And when you think about, when you look at, now we do have some debris here. Now let's look at the palm trees. When you think about a wind event, what does wind do with stuff? Kind of scatters it.
Yep.
You look at a flood event, what does a flood do? It pushes it.
Pushes it all in one direction.
It goes in kind of one direction. And that's one of the ways you can look at, and when you're looking at a structure, and you can go to the other one, cue up the other one if you want real quick. And you go to the structure, and you look at the structure, as if you know it's kind of a wind event, especially after our flood event, after Katrina, you can tell it's a flood event because all the framing and all the, can you pause it real quick? All the framing and go to the very beginning, if you don't mind. All the framing, okay, that was left, the sill plates and the plumbing, all was pointed in one direction. So you could tell the house just went
Yep.
and everything went that direction. And that was the best way to look at that. So this is the last one real quick. So what does this look like to y'all?
Wind.
Whoa, Lord have mercy.
That's like a popcorn machine that just, the popcorn popper or the snow cone or the cotton candy machine just.
That's blowed away.
But yeah, here you see how that debris is scattered. That's kind of your investigation when you're talking about. Well, I'm trying to figure out what the debris is.
Look at the palm tree
Scattered.
Yeah.
So, okay.
compared to the other one.
So, so again, that was, that's our claims corner for today, basically. Like I said, we wanted to talk about these two perils that we see out there, especially with the spring flooding about to happen and, starting to see snow melt. I've seen some other reports where other areas, the snowpack is still pretty heavy in the Midwest and places like that, which they're going to also start experiencing spring flooding. And you're going to get these sewer backups. You're going to get these basements that the flooding is going to come back. It's going to back up in the basement. It's going to cause these damages. And then we have to say as an adjuster, what are we going to pay for? Because you're going to file a claim, I'm going to file a claim, and we got to talk. We have to have that conversation. And the same thing with hurricane season coming up. And what we saw after Ian is that we're going to have situations where there's flood and wind on a property, and we have to have that conversation and and especially on the flood side, do the investigation of the wind versus water tips, make sure that what we're making a recommendation for, you're not making a recommendation for. If not, we got these proportional loss settlements that we have to look back and forth and say, what do we actually owe?
It's in the manual.
Yeah.
And if we're not having this conversation, not happening. So,
Yeah.
Right.
all right. So, there's probably not any questions. And I'm just gonna throw that out there. Julie, are there any questions? And I'm gonna say they're probably not, because I think we covered a good deal of what we're supposed to be doing out there. Yeah. And I think what we hit on are all the important topics. And I will leave it with this. No questions, Jeremiah? Okay. But I will leave it with this, and I'll let y'all pipe in as well. The biggest thing here out of all that we're talking about is one thing.
Communication.
And if you let that communication break down, or if the levee breaks, you have no place to stay. If you notice that, I just quoted 2 Led Zeppelin songs, like back to back.
You got to go home, but you got to get
that's pretty good.
Here.
No, because if the communication, you don't have that communication piece going. I mean, the whole process, the whole claims process fails. And that fails the insurer, that fails the customer, that fails the adjuster, that fails everybody.
More work than what was needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Last remarks.
Toe up from the flow up.
Very good.
Yeah. Biggest thing is communication.
Yeah.
One conversation goes a long way. Time is money. Do it up front. Save yourself time and money on the back end.
So we do have a question. Where's this question at? Ashley sent it. Fantastic. Okay, question. All right. I was taught when there is blockage in the main sewer line on the homeowner's property and the sewer waste contents builds up and not able to flow, the sewer contents is not backing up but building up and covered under homeowners. When contents of the sewer line reverse and backs up to another home, this is sewer backup and not a buildup.
Yeah, that's where it gets tricky too, because the buildup is the proximate cause. If there's no buildup, it's more than likely wouldn't happen. It makes it that sudden and accidental, which is the other buzz term. So when you got the buildup, a lot of times that's your first line of exclusion there.
You know what's good about this question too? It starts making you think. Okay, where are we going with this? Where can we actually apply coverage? And as I'm reading this question again, the first thing I kind of think of, okay, we have, and if I'm reading this right, sewer backs up in a home, and then as it reverses, it backs up into another home. Okay, let's say that. Now, does that meet the definition of a flood in that situation? We have a source of water.
2 properties.
We have 2 properties. Okay, I'm not going to say yes. I'm not going to say no, but that would just leads a question that I would start investigating more, and that's an adjuster. You got to do that. You got to investigate more, and then you have to have that conversation with a manager or somebody else. Say, here's the situation I ran into. Do we have coverage here?
You just don't automatically default to a denial.
Correct.
So no, investigate
Or
it fully.
exclusion, or
Yeah.
none of that stuff. You got to investigate. So that's a really good question. So, all right. So, Claims Corner in 2 weeks. We appreciate everybody joining us this lunch hour. I think we're back. We're kind of early today, so that's great. Actually, we're not early. It's 1 o'clock already. Again, we appreciate everybody coming on and joining us for this Claims Corner. We do have Claims Corner coming up on April 27th, and we're going to talk about earthquakes. And why are we talking about earthquakes? Okay? Earthquakes are bound to happen. Okay? It's going to happen. So we actually going to have Keystone on that's going to talk about
when is earthquake season?
It's 365 days out of the year.
All the time.
But I just, with the amount of snow and the soil saturations in California, it's just, and they've had some rumblings here and there, it's just bound for a earthquake.
Are you making a prediction?
No.
Speaking to the mic if you're making a
I'm
prediction.
not making a prediction, because if you saw my my Final Four college basketball bracket, whew. Anyway, so I'm not making a prediction for that next week. But yeah, I just see something down the road eventually happening with just the way things are going on in the weather-wise in California. So we have Keystone going to come on. They're going to talk about this. They're going to talk about some earthquake stuff. We're going to talk about what we should do when we're looking at a claim from an adjuster's point of view, what we need to do, and when we got to say, all right, this is kind of out of my hands. Let's get our investigator, our technical expert out here to take a look at this and tell us what they're seeing and how we can apply that toward our estimates and apply that toward actual coverages that we find under the basic policies and under the California Earthquake Authority program. So with that, Murphy, thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
David.
I'm hungry.
I know. So we're going to call it a day. And again, everybody, I appreciate your time, and I hope y'all have a great Thursday, and we'll see y'all in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Have a great day.
Bye.
See ya.